Why do we do that?
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 My name is Father Marc Lenneman, and I'm the chaplain here at Carroll College in Helena, Montana. First of all, Lent is one of my favorite seasons. The word actually means springtime. So instead of this kind of morose, and really drab time of year, actually it's new life. And so new life is meant to come into us in the disciplines of Lent, and that's exactly why the church asks us to take up those disciplines. I guess in a certain sense, it's kind of like sometimes spiritually we might get out of shape, just as physically we might get out of shape. And so the only way to get back in shape is to get some spiritual training in, or workouts in. And that's what Lent is. In fact, Pope Benedict said that Lent is meant to be an itinerary of intense spiritual training. So I kind of look at it that way. And I think one of the most important disciplines in Lent is fasting. It comes from the Lord. Jesus speaks about fasting in the Sermon on the Mount. And interestingly enough, he says, when you fast, not if you fast. And just in my personal reflection and even my personal life, I think fasting might be one of the most important disciplines that we could ever have in our spiritual lives, because we live in a culture that is so consumeristic. We have too much of everything. And all those options and all those desires can actually weigh us down so that we don't have the ability to discern what's really important, what's primarily important versus what's secondary or even not important at all. And fasting really allows us to exercise, to work out the desires of our heart, to say no to certain things so that we can say yes to greater things. And that's absolutely what fasting does. And I encourage people to be real creative with their Lenten fastings, not just from meat on Fridays, for example, even though that's a good thing, or from giving up pop or candy or something like that. Those are really good disciplines because it calls to mind something greater that we're about. We want to reach for that hamburger on Friday, and then all of a sudden we're reminded it's Lent, and I have another desire in my heart than that particular meal. There's something bigger that I'm about. And so I focus in on the Lord. And I remember in that moment that, because I'm a Christian, because I'm a Catholic, because I'm intentional about my spiritual life, I forego this. I say no to this right now in order to say yes. I also think that there's a great possibility of fasting from the media and from all the noise in our lives. Mother Teresa, she says, the fruit of silence is prayer. And we know that prayer is the key to intimacy with God. Well, fasting from noise, from TV, from video games, from excess internet use, man, does it open up so much space in our lives. Mother Teresa also said, if the cup is full, the Lord can't fill it with anything. So the cup needs to be poured out. And I don't know anybody who would say, my cup's not full at all. I think we all suffer from so many things that can distract us. And fasting really allows us to let those distractions be put aside. We're intentional about not listening to all the voices, the competing voices of the culture, and even some of the competing voices in our hearts. And we go deeper to the deeper thing. And that deeper thing is our love for Christ, our need for Him, and the attraction that our souls have for God. Fasting brings that all into a real clear focus and allows us to say yes to something bigger by saying no to something less important.